Going into debt is like riding a bike down a very, very steep hill. You are not alone, right? Nothing has gone wrong. Do not blow up the strategy. The strategy will work if you stick to it. The strategy won't work if you stop doing it. Hi, business owners. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are doing part 2 of the 5 stages of business debt payoff. Now, if you didn't catch the first part, go back to last week's episode. I highly recommend watching the podcast on YouTube at Gina Knox or on Spotify where you can see the video podcast version, because I have an entire layout, an entire visual accompaniment for this episode. Now, I will say, a little wah-wah moment. My overhead camera that films my hands burnt out. I need a new one. And so I'm not going to have any overhead visuals with me today, but I'll put a screenshot here of the full diagram so you can see what we are referring to. Now, last week we talked about going into debt and we talked about rock bottom. And we talked about how rock bottom is actually not a bad place to be. It is just the beginning of your journey. And if you can remember, or imagine if you're just listening to this on audio, going into debt is like riding a bike down a very, very steep hill. It's easy from the perspective that you don't have to exert a lot of energy. You don't have to pedal the pedals, but it's a little scary. The bike's a little shaky. Rock bottom is when you crash out, right? You go over the handlebars, you get scuffed up, maybe you break a couple bones, right? And in terms of debt payoff, that's really that point of time where you go, something big has happened. I have maxed out all my cards, or I've got denied for another loan, or I'm not able to pay my bills and I'm like totally maxed out on the debt, right? Rock bottom is the point where you go, oh, I can't continue on the way I have been running to date. Now, today we're going to talk about stages 3 and 4, which is no new debt and slow burn hill. So let's start with no new debt. It's kind of a very interesting period of time because on the diagram, no new debt is actually flat ground. Again, I want you to imagine that you're on a bicycle. When you're on flat ground, it's relatively easy to propel forward, right? Yes, you have to get back on the bike, you have to pedal the pedals, but you're going to make progress at a normal rate. You don't have gravity working against you yet. When it comes to paying off business debt, the no new debt section of your journey will actually feel very invigorating, especially when you have a strategy and a plan to follow, like all my clients do inside Small Business Money School, when we give them literal exact instructions on what they should be doing. It feels like there's a lot of stuff to do during the no new debt section of the payoff journey. You are getting to know your numbers, right? You're cleaning up your P&L. You're cutting little expenses that don't make a difference. You're cutting big expenses that don't make a difference. You're simplifying your business. You are lowering your payroll costs, right? There's a lot of action actually during the no new debt section. There's a lot of things you're doing. And even if you're still in a ton of debt and it's still stressful, there is some level of dopamine that comes to your brain from this perspective of like, I'm doing something, right? At least here, you're doing something about your debt for the first time. Compared to going into debt and rock bottom, where there's just a lot of despair, during no new debt, you really feel like you're making progress, and you're making progress fast. Not because you're necessarily paying off your debt, but because you're doing something about it, right? All of that dopamine during the no new debt section comes from your actions. It feels like for the first time, the debt is in your control. So what I want you to really imagine, or what I want you to rather capitalize on, especially if you're in the no new debt section of the debt payoff journey, is this is the best place you can be. The best thing you can do during the no new debt section is enjoy the fact, and I know this may sound a little counterintuitive, enjoy the fact that there's so much for you to do. Enjoy the fact that there's a task. Enjoy the fact that every little task you do makes progress, right? You are pedaling the bicycle, and every time you push the pedal, you move forward. And at this stage, gravity is not working against you, right? You're still on flat ground. So I want you to lean into that to get your to-do list items done as quickly as possible. All of what you are doing right now is laying the foundation for a successful debt payoff journey. So what is a successful debt payoff journey? I'll give it to you in a really concise way, because it's literally what we take our clients through in Small Business Money School every day. Number one, you have to know your numbers. And I don't just mean like conceptually. I don't just mean like, oh, you have a bookkeeper who knows your numbers. I need you to know your numbers. You need to know on average what is coming in every single month, on average what is going out every single month, how much is left, if anything, because that number is really, really important. We need to know what are your minimum payments towards all your debt for the business. We need to know what you're paying yourself. We need to know your estimated tax liability and how much you have left to save, if anything, for that, so that that doesn't become another issue in a couple months when taxes come due and you're like, oh shit, I was so focused on this debt thing that I didn't worry about taxes. So we need to know your numbers intimately. Step 2 is control your expenses. This is when we're auditing. Now that you have the data, now that you know the numbers, we need to audit the numbers. We need to interpret the numbers. We need to say, I can cancel this, and this. I can reduce that team member to this many hours, or I can eliminate, an entire section of my business. Like literally, if you have an income stream that is costing you more money than it is making you, maybe we stop doing that and maybe we focus on the ones that are making you money instead of costing you money, right? You are auditing, you are taking action, you are essentially in this section increasing your profit. You are doing everything that you can do with the current sales that you have to make the money left over number bigger. Then in step 3 of the path to profit, you're going to pay off debt fast. And what that just means is we're going to organize all your debt into one place. The balances, the interest rates, the minimum payment, the due date during the month, like the 1st of the month or the 24th of the month. And we're going to map it all out into one dashboard, which is going to tell us your estimated debt payoff date right now if nothing else changes. This is really, really important, okay? And again, this is all during the no new debt stage. It's really, really important that you create a debt payoff plan based on current revenue, not future fantasy revenue. We're not telling ourselves, I'll pay off debt when I have that launch. I'll pay off debt when, the summer season comes. I'll pay off debt when I hire a better sales team. No. Based on your current earnings rate, what is the plan to pay off the debt and when will that date come? Okay. And then we teach you the debt leapfrog method, which is basically a way for you to speed up your timeline without adding more money. So that's kind of like the plan. And that's it's a lot of doing. It's a lot of like, okay, I'm taking action. I'm putting together the spreadsheet. I'm putting together the plan. I'm canceling things and redirecting money. It's a lot of action. So no new debt stage 3 is all action based. And remember, we're on the bicycle and we're moving forward, but then we get to slow burn hill. You usually get to slow burn hill anywhere from 2 to 3, or maybe even 2 to 4 months into your debt payoff journey after rock bottom. And again, this is from the perspective of my clients who are working with me, who actually have a coach who's giving them a direct plan on what to do next. If you're doing this on your own, it might take a little bit longer, but everyone hits slow burn hill. I want you to imagine, and again, I'll put a big screenshot here of our framework. Slow burn hill is like a slow incline. Again, you're on a bicycle. Have you ever been on a bike and you go up a slow incline and it's not steep, right? It's not steep where you're like, okay, I gotta like really pump myself up. It's just slow. And it doesn't look that bad, but it's like 5 miles long. So it's 5 miles of endurance working against gravity. And at first you don't really feel it, right? Your legs are fine. But about, 5 minutes in, you're like, ooh, I'm burning, right? Like I'm burning, my muscles are burning. And when is this freaking incline going to be over? When am I going to plateau a little bit and get some reprieve? That is slow burn hill. When it comes to your debt payoff, this happens when all the actions are done. You've done the know your numbers. You've done the control your expenses. You've done the debt plan and the leapfrog, and you have the strategy in place. And now all that's left to do is just continue. You just have to keep sticking to the plan. There's no more cleaning up. There's no more tons of actions. There's just stick to the plan and continue growing the company, paying off the debt. And this is where people fall off. Slow burn hill is the number one place when people go right back into debt and begin their debt payoff process all over again. Because slow burn hill is an endurance game. And when I say endurance, obviously we have like the picture of the bicycle, right? That's physical endurance. It's not a physical endurance game in the business. It is a dopamine endurance game. So again, let's go back to that no new debt section when you're doing all the things. Taking all those actions is actually giving your brain little hits of dopamine. Even if it's not like a traditional version of dopamine that you would think of, like fun, fun stuff. But it's giving you little hits of dopamine because you are telling yourself, ooh, I'm taking action, I'm making progress. And we feel good when we're making progress. But on slow burn hill, there's no more actions to take other than but continue. So all of a sudden it goes quiet and it feels like I was making so much progress before. Really, you were just taking a lot of actions and now I'm not making that much progress anymore. And it's just like boring. It's boring and slow and hard. This is when you will fall off. You will go right back to going into debt if you do not manage your mind around the dopamine. So the first way that we're going to manage your mind is just by naming it. This is what is happening. You are on slow burn hill. Everybody goes through this. You are not alone, right? Nothing has gone wrong. This is like, I swear, half of my work with my clients in the podcast, everything is just giving you a framework for what you're experiencing so that you realize that this is normal, that nothing has gone wrong, right? You don't have to blow up the strategy. Do not blow up the strategy. The strategy will work if you stick to it. The strategy won't work if you stop doing it, right? So that is all that you have to do here is just stick to the strategy. Now, what happens next after slow burn hill? Gina, is it a slow burn forever? Is it just a slow burn for the next 3 years? Because that's technically when my spreadsheet says I'll pay off the debt. Is it really just a slow burn for the next 3 years? And this is the final part of the 5 stages of debt payoff. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. So we hit this fork in the road where it can go one of 2 ways. You can go on stage 5A. There's like 5A and 5B. You can go on stage 5A, which is the endless burn, where it is just 3 more years of you sticking to this strategy, of you making the payments you said, and just continuing forward. And that is fine from the perspective that it will work. It will get you out of debt, but it'll just feel arduous. It'll feel like boring because you'll be sticking to your budget and you'll be saying no to things you want to spend money on, but you can't spend money on because of your budget. And you'll be doing your monthly payments and you'll be following the leapfrog, and it'll just be that for the next 3 years. And again, it's not bad. It gets you to debt free. In fact, like a lot of personal finance, methodologies kind of are like that. It's like stick to it until you hit the goal. And there is value in the discipline of sticking to a process like that long term. But there's another option for entrepreneurs. It's option 5B, which I call the easy downhill. Instead of continuing up, your slow incline on your bike, you hit a peak and then you have an easy downhill. This is when it's not scary like going into debt, where you're going down a very sharp incline and you're losing control of your bike. The easy downhill is like an easy downhill. I'm on my bike. I'm still pedaling, but I'm like not having to pedal hard. I can stop pedaling for a little while and the nice downgrade will carry me down the slope. and it's like the breeze is in my hair and the sun is shining. Now, what does this feel like, or what does this mean from an actual debt payoff perspective? This happens to the entrepreneurs who have their debt payoff plan, meaning they have the spreadsheet, they know which card they are paying when, they know where they're putting their extra money, they've made their business as profitable as possible, meaning they've controlled their expenses and they've redirected that profit to the debt payoff, right? So they've done all the things that everyone else has done. But now, at this point in time, they've kind of set that strategy. And it's not that they've forgotten it. It's not set it and forget it, but it's set it and don't think about it so much anymore. And instead of thinking about the debt payoff, they move on to business growth again. They go, how can I make more money in my business without increasing my expenses, without going back into a big spending frenzy, right? We're not talking about, oh, great, now I have my debt payoff strategy, but now let me triple my ad spend. No. But how can I get creative about making more money? And we go back to focusing on the business revenue problems. What is slowing me down? What messaging can I test? What positioning of my product can I test? Can I create a new product or test my way into a new product in the market? Is there something I can sell to my existing clients who've already paid me as another way to work with me? Is there a way I can create a higher LTV, lifetime value, for a client? So if a client on average pays me, for me, it's like what, $2,500 for small business planning school. Can I get them to re-sign or join another one of my things? Can I sell more things to my existing clientele? Can I get people to spend more money on average in my store? Can I get people to return to my restaurant, right? Instead of trying to find new buyers, can I sell more to my existing buyers? Can I find new buyers? These are the questions, right? It goes back to business growth. Because what's going to happen when you focus on your business growth and growing your top line revenue is you've actually already done all the work in the profitability, in the expenses side of the business. So now, if you grow your revenue, all that will translate to is increased profit because you've already done the hard work on the expenses. And what happens when you have more profit? You have more money to pay your debt, and the debt gets paid faster and faster and faster. It starts snowballing, not like the snowball method, but like it starts snowballing from the perspective that you're like, oh my God, it's happening faster and faster and faster. How is this happening? And then before you know it, the debt will be gone and you will be shocked. I've seen this literally happen where my clients, they're a disaster. They're in debt over their eyeballs, and they go through the process. They go through rock bottom. They go through no new debt. They go through slow burn hill. And then all of a sudden, we start coaching on different things. We start coaching on all the business experiments that they could be running to be making more money. We start coaching on all of that. And then a few months later, they look up and they're like, how did I pay off this debt so much earlier than my spreadsheet even said? They're like, dumbfounded. And they'll even say this. They'll say, I mean, I know how, but it still feels miraculous. That is what is available to you. And this process doesn't have to take years and years and years. This process can take 8 months. This process can take 5 months. Maybe it takes a little longer if you have, a disproportionately high amount of debt compared to your income, but it is not a 10-year, decade-long issue, right? And most importantly, it's not a willpower issue unless you do the endless burn going forward, right? If you decide, I'm a business owner. Business owners decide to make their own money. Business owners can sell things whenever they want. And I am in control of my income, which means I can go out and decide to make more money. And maybe it's not going to work the first time. I might have to test a couple things, but I can do that. You will be so shocked at what you can accomplish. I'll give you an example. I have a client who owns a bakery, cafe / specialty food store / bookstore. It's like a lot of things going on. And we got her out of a big debt cycle where she was going into debt in the winter to pay payroll during her low season, and then paying off the debt during the summer during her high season, but then not saving anything and then going back into debt every winter. So we got her out of that cycle, thank God. But now she's working on some of her credit card debt. And she has this belief, like, well, my business is cyclical because I live in a touristy town, and I, winter's slow and summer's high. And I was like, yeah, that can be true. I'm not saying that's not true, but I am saying you have control over your sales and you can decide to make more money. And I remember I threw out an idea. I was like, what's your best seller in the winter? And she's like, well, soup. That's not surprising, right? She lives in a cold location. And so she goes, well, soup. And I'm like, well, why don't you try and sell soup more during the winter? What are some ideas for how you can sell soup more? And a few months later, she came back with this. Let me pull it up. And I quote, happy to report that our sales are up 11% so far this year compared to last year. Much of that due to doubling down on what we're good at and not scrambling to put together new offers. Soup is one of our big things. And yesterday we ran a soup flight promotion, like a beer flight or like a flight of soup, like 3 different flavors. We've done these before, but usually in the evening. Customers loved the Saturday opportunity, and we saw many new faces in the cafe. I increased the price by 25% and sold just as many as in the past. Soup flights and soup by the quart accounted for 25% of our sales yesterday and made what could have been a rather dull sales day into a bustling cafe all day. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about taking responsibility and saying, I'm in charge here. This is my business. I don't care that it's slow season on paper. I'm going to do what I can do to make more money, because now this client has her debt payoff strategy in place. So those extra dollars just go straight into the debt payoff machine and make it all happen faster. So this is the 5 stages of debt payoff. Let me know in the comments, or let me know on the reviews, or however you want to interact with this, what stage you are in and what you are struggling with. I just want to let you know that you are not alone. I work with businesses like you every single day. There's a reason why I have this entire framework, right? It's because I have coached over 700 small business owners and have worked with many more before that. And the reality is that as dark as it may feel, if you're at rock bottom or if you're at no new debt and you're just like trying to get back on the bike, trying to keep going, or if you're on slow burn hill, wherever you are at, or if you've gone through this process multiple times, you've given up and started over and given up and started over. I just want to let you know you're not alone. And this is not an unsolvable problem. All right. So I hope that this whole thing was helpful. I hope that you continue listening and implementing what you're learning here on the podcast in your own business. I know that it can help you. And with that, I actually want to introduce a new segment in the podcast. I want to be doing this. Let's see how it goes. You tell me in the comments if you like this segment. But what I want to introduce to you is a new segment called The Businesses of Small Business Money School. Just the other day, I was reading the introductions channel inside Small Business Money School, which is where business owners can just introduce themselves to the community, say why they're here. And I started crying. And I always get really weepy and emotional around the introductions channel because of the incredible business owners that are in here. And I just wanted to read to you, and I want to do this on every podcast episode, an introduction from a real business inside Small Business Money School. She said, I'm the owner of a performing arts studio in San Diego, California. I'm also a director, choreographer, and producer. My business services include singing, acting, and dance programs for youth, as well as creating original dance theater productions as commissioned work. I got the keys to my studio on March 5th, 2020. Ouch. Just days before COVID mandatory shutdowns orders were in place. We had already started tenant improvements to build out our studio. The holding and waiting costs drained us financially that we had to sell our house and pull from retirement. After months of construction and waiting, we were finally able to open our doors February 21st, 2021. We still had major COVID restrictions to navigate, but we persevered. While I was opening my studio, I was finishing up my last year of my 3-year chemotherapy treatments. I had a rare form of leukemia and spent 45 days in the hospital. While I was at the hospital, I was able to dream up my studio. I figured I almost died, so I might as well spend the rest of my precious life doing something that I love. So I survived both cancer and opening a business during COVID. Sometimes I think I have 9 lives. Over the past 4 years, being open and trying to recuperate from tenant improvements, business startup costs, and the recent forced move, I have accumulated $100,000 in debt. I've put my head down, avoided knowing my numbers and figuring out where all my money is going. I want and need to change my situation to where I feel confident knowing that I have a viable business and positive financial future. I'm ready to tackle the situation I'm in. My goals are to know my numbers, pay off debt, and pay myself a decent, recurring, and predictable salary. I look forward to learning and being in this community. When I tell you, I literally get emotional reading these, it's because these are the type of businesses inside of our community, but these are also the type of businesses in your communities. When I say you are not alone, I mean you are not alone. This is one story, and whether you just have one kernel of, similarity with this business, I want you to take that to mean that you are not some, disaster. And I have seen much worse cases than this. I'm like, honestly, when I first read this, I was like, that you only have 100K of debt. Dang, good for you. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this person had said that they're in over $1 million of debt, which we have, by the way. We have clients who are in over $1 million of debt. So when I say you're not alone, I hope that these businesses of Small Business Money School, this little segment that we do, helps illustrate that. And I also just want to end on the note to say, I'm not afraid of these stories. When I read a story like this, all I think is, I'm so glad you're here. We can help. I am so glad you are here and we can help. This story is not scary to me. This story is not, oh, you know what? You better close up your business because you're too far gone. Not anywhere near that. It couldn't be further from the truth. So I hope that no matter the situation that you're in, no matter what's happened in the past or what decisions that you've made, I hope by just listening to this podcast, you can know that there is hope. Okay? All right. With that, I will see you all in the next episode. Take it easy.